Welcome back to Gabby's Garden Jars. We just finished moving a few months ago and finally got our Paludarium back up to a presentable state. So we figured we'd walk you through how we built it and some of our lessons learned along the way. We did the background with expanding foam directly onto the glass, and then embedded some wood into the expanding foam. Coated the expanding foam once it was cured with type 1 silicone, and then pressed cocoa fiber into the silicone. This worked really well for about 5 or 6 months, but then we found that the background, especially at the top, started to pull away from the glass. Our lesson learned here is that we should have used more silicone and egg crate framework in the background to help hold the structure to the glass. This picture actually shows two mistakes that we made. The first is the ramp that you see in blue on the back is made of expanding foam that we intended to just weigh down with rocks. That was not really successful because it was just too hard to get the buoyancy right after the fact. And then, so instead, for any ramps, just anchor it, make it out of either rock or wood, and anchor it to the wall, or build up from the bottom. The second mistake we made is also in blue. That's the housing for the pump when we intended to put in a water feature. We didn't secure it hard enough and well enough to the glass. The result is that we ended up never really being able to turn on the water feature with any real effectiveness. Fish kept getting in and getting trapped in there with the housing. So if you're going to use a water feature, use a pump, anything like that, you need to make sure that the part that separates it from the rest of the tank is properly secured. For our Mist King mister system, we ended up using 8 heads in the front spaced at 6 inches apart and 4 heads in the back spaced at 12 inches apart. We found that ended up being just about right for the amount of humidity that we wanted. Everybody's setup is going to be a little bit different with the Mist King, but for us, we run it 4 times a day with a long interval at dawn and a long interval at dusk, and then a mid-morning short interval and a mid-afternoon short interval. We go into a lot more detail on our Mist King setup in another video, so feel free to check that out. We won't waste the time here. This shows our first fill and leak test, as well as a couple of the first plantings. Our key lesson learned here is that we could have put some more moss in up front, and that would have helped retain humidity. Some of these plants suffered a little bit before we got moss installed. Here we are fully planted for the first time. We went through a lot of trial and error with a lot of these plants. Humidity ended up being either too high or too low for quite a few of them. The other really common issue we ran into is whether or not plants were getting enough light based on their location. We ended up having to add a water light specifically for the water plants, and Selaganella in particular wasn't getting enough light down low in the tank. Our Hupersia and orchids were also too low in the tank, resulting in them getting way too much water, and most of them rotted a little bit before we moved them up higher. We'll do some separate videos on each of the plants that we were successful with. You can see here we're using Syndapsus and Pothos to help pull nitrates out of the water. We talk a little bit more about the nitrate cycle in another video. This is the tank at about the 7-month or so mark. You can see the aquatic plants grew in incredibly well once we put the water light in. Our first attempt at the water light, we had suspended it with fishing line, which worked pretty well until we moved in hindsight, and you'll see this on the new one, but we used steel cable. Those came in a cheap, easy kit off Amazon. Here you see Paludarium 2.0 set up finally after our. We turn the water feature on about once a week for about 10 minutes, or if we just feel like listening. If we ran it nonstop, I think it would eat a little too much of our electricity bill, as well as eventually it would cause some of those plants to get waterlogged. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to comment below or send us an email. If you like the comment, give us a like or a subscribe, and as always, thanks for stopping by Gabby's Garden Jars.